You okay? It looks like the weather will be like this all day tomorrow after all. Damn, it's hard to believe it was dry out earlier. George, Aniki, and I were killing time in front of the parlor television. At that point, Jessica returned. Her face was still blank, but it looked like she had calmed down a little since she had left. Is Maria still in front of the portrait?
Nope. You just came back and she's sleeping over there on the sofa. It is getting pretty late for her.
Looking at the clock, it was a little past 10 p.m. Even if we were going to stay up all night, it was about time to head back to our room. My mom did prepare a room for us in the mansion, but what do you want to do?
I think I'd rather head back to the guest house. Judging by our parents' appearance, I think it would be better if we weren't in the mansion. Second that. Feels like they're telling us kids to mind their own business and stay out of their way. Let's do that, like those little boys and girls.
After we discussed that, Auntie Rosa came into the parlor. She was looking all over restlessly, probably trying to find Maria.
Auntie Rosa, if you're looking for Maria, she's over there on the sofa.
Thank you. My, she's out cold. We must move her to a bed.
If you would like me to, I can carry her to a bed.
Thank you. That would be wonderful. Will all of you return to the guest house? Or will you stay in the room Ne-san prepared? We were just talking about that. We decided to head over to the guest house. Really? Then I wonder if you wouldn't mind taking Maria with you? I think it would be much more comforting for her if she was with all of her cousins. It seemed that, in the shadow behind those words, there was some regret that the adults, herself included, had deeply hurt Maria's feelings.
Leave it to us, Auntie. After all, we do have an expert at comforting Maria with us. Are you talking about me? I couldn't do it by myself. We'll need everyone together.
That's right. Battler, weren't you the one who hit it off with Maria when you were messing around earlier? As we said this, Auntie Rosa smiled, looking truly happy. Thank you, everyone. It looks like our meeting will last until very late. So, I'm sorry for the burden, but I will leave Maria in your hands.
Hey, Maria, are you awake? We're going back to the guest house.
Maria muttered something indistinct as if answering, but then rolled over and fell back asleep. It looked like she was sleeping deeply. She's really out cold. It'd be bad to wake her.
Right. I'll carry her.
Maria's body was much lighter than it looked. George Aniki picked her up and pulled her over his back. It was raining hard outside, and Aniki couldn't hold an umbrella and carry Maria at the same time. It looked like Auntie Rosa would come with us as far as the guest house to help out. However, when she heard Uncle Krause's voice call out to her, she had no choice but to return. Oh, dear. I have to go back. Is everyone returning to the guest house? After we left the hall on the way to the entrance, the door to the servant room opened and Shannon had stepped out. It has become very dark, so allow me to guide you. Perfect timing, Shannon-chan. George-kun is going to carry Maria there. Could you hold an umbrella for him? Yes, certainly. Shannon-chan brought umbrellas for each of us and a flashlight to guide the way. As we opened the front door, the downpour was quite terrific. It looked like we wouldn't have had any spare time to take a pleasant walk and enjoy the nighttime rose garden.
Aniki, is she too heavy? Want me to carry her? It's alright. I could at least carry Maria-chan.
I'm truly grateful. Please take care of Maria. Right, we understand. In any case, good night, Auntie. And I will see them over there and return here. Yes, please. Auntie Rosa saw us off. Maria, I'm sorry for everything. Rosa's mumbling voice didn't reach the person in question, nor anyone else, but disappeared behind the sound of rain. One of my favorite things is coming up soon. After cutting through the rainy rose garden, we arrived at the guest house.
If only I had applied for the position of Maria carrier. Then I got to rub Shannon
Just all over my arm while she had the umbrella over me. I gotcha.
That's not on purpose. It's a misunderstanding.
I thought that if I didn't, George-sama would get all wet. Come on, quit babbling and go in! After being nudged in by Jessica, Shannon folded up her umbrella and went into the guest house. Has anyone gotten their clothes wet? I could bring some towels if you would like.
You don't need to worry about us that much. Thanks, Shannon-chan. Oh, yes. We were saying earlier that we would play some cards. Do you want to stay with us for a while?
Huh? Who had the night shift on today's schedule? I believe there's a special schedule for the duration of the family conference. I believe there are a few changes, so I will go and check.
Wait, if you have to go all the way back to the mansion to find out, you don't have to force yourself.
That's alright. I can find out from the servant room in the guest house. Please excuse me for a short while. Shannon gave him a quick bow before she went to the guest house servant room. The rest of us headed for the cousin's room and put Maria to bed for the time being. Maria was sleeping very deeply, and there was absolutely no sign of her eyes opening. We got some drinks out of the room's refrigerator and spent some time playing cards while drinking. Huh? Kanan-kun! Even Genji-sama is here? What's happening with tonight's shift? Kraus-sama has given an order. There have been modifications made to most of the schedule. Indeed. Goda has changed the night shift out of the mansion. You and Shannon have the night shift in the guest house. Kumasawa-san and I have been ordered to spend the night in the guest house. We just now had a phone call that stated that you are to remain here as well. Huh? That's quite a large modification. The shifts at the guest house and the mansion have been completely reversed, haven't they? Originally, Shannon and Cannon have been given the night shift in the mansion, while the night shift in the guest house, where all the relatives were staying, had been assigned to Goda, who had an abundance of experience in entertaining. Kumasawa had been scheduled to stay in the guest house, while Genji had been scheduled to stay in the mansion. However, it seemed that Kraus had suddenly ordered that the schedule be modified. The shifts at the guest house and the mansion had all been reversed, and Genji was spending the night in the guest house. It's probably because of Beatrice-sama's letter. Probably. Why? When such a mysterious letter appeared, it was only natural that Kraus-sama would expect one of us. We served directly under the master, so Kraus-sama probably wanted to keep us as far away from the family conference as possible. Genji, Shannon, and Kanon were all permitted to wear the Yoshinomiya family crest, the one-winged angel, as the servants who served directly under Kinzo. Huh? Eagle. God, one-winged angel. God damn. Angel! Genji, Shannon, and Kanon were all permitted to wear the Yoshinomiya family crest, the one-winged eagle, as servants who served directly under Kinzo. Of course, since they were working for the Yoshinomiya family, they had to obey anyone's orders, but their only boss was Kinzo. Since only Kinzo had the right to employ them, even Kraus could not have dismissed this of his own accord. Because of this, they were often viewed by Kraus and the others as Kinzo's underlings and shunned. In reality, Kinzo would seldom let anyone other than them enter the study. Next time you say one-winged angel instead of eagle, can we just put the Sephiroth sigil? You could probably call this sudden shift and change a clear expression of pensive distrust. Considering the time Kinzo had left to live, this would definitely be the last family conference before the problem of the inheritance would come up. On top of that, the mysterious letter that had claimed to be from Beatrice had dropped in out of the blue. Kraus definitely wanted to keep Kinzo's loyal subjects away from the table at such delicate and important discussion. If you would excuse me, I will go rest. If anything happens, call me immediately. Our company tonight is special. Yes, certainly, Genji-sama. Genji nodded back, went behind a screen, took off his jacket, and slowly began to relax after a day's worth of tension. The ones who just returned now. Were they the children? Yes. The other relatives are having a conference in the mansion. It looked like it would drag on until much later. Then that would be comfortable. It's already this late. And there's this weather. Probably the rest of the relatives will spend the night in their rooms in the mansion. Yes, probably. I'm only saying this because Genji isn't around, but I'm a little happy I was sent to the guest house. I think. No? Why's that? Because you won't be able to distance yourself from the bully. You'll be able to distance yourself from the bullying of Madame and Eva-sama? Or do you have another reason? I don't have any other reasons. I see. Then, let's do our best together with our midnight shift. I'm counting on you, Nissan. Just now I was asked to go to the children's room and play with them. Shannon hung her head apologetically and made uncertain glances toward Cannon's eyes. Cannon didn't try to meet her gaze and spoke curtly as he sighed. It looked like he didn't plan on indulging his sister. You can't. You were assigned to the night shift. And besides that, it is not necessary for furniture like us to respond to an invitation to play. You understand, right? Yes, I do understand. Shannon dropped her shoulder slightly. She had already expected that Cannon, who considered rules to be very important, would probably say something like that, but even so, she was a little discouraged. As Cannon turned the pages of a logbook, he spoke without facing Shannon. In that case, you must be keeping the children waiting. You'll have to apologize and tell them that you have the night shift and won't be able to stay with them. Off you go, then. Yes! I'll just go apologize. Shannon hurriedly stood from her seat, and before her brother's mood would change, gave a quick bow and flew out of the servant room. As he watched her disappear, Cannon took a sigh and a single deep breath. Genji's voice came from beyond the screen. Cannon, I will be here, so you should go too. Genji-sama. Shannon was the only one called. It's not like I was invited. That's only because you were not there at the time. If you had been, you would have been invited as well. It is good to play as a child from time to time. No, that's not something that I need to do. A human child may have a need to play, but we are furniture. Is that so? Nissan is also furniture. Even if she pretends to be a person, it will only hurt her later. I understand that, so I try not to get close to people. Genji did not say anything after that. A few moments passed, and then he stood up, used a pot of hot water to make some hot chocolate from powder, and served it to Kanon as well.
Holy crap, seriously? I did not know that.
Keep it down, dumbass! We'll wake Maria up! Father was so surprised that he yelled obnoxiously and scattered his cards everywhere. His voice caused Maria to turn over once, but she soon fell back into a deep sleep. Jessica gave him a jab and he lowered his voice.
No, yeah. Now that you said that, they really did have that kind of atmosphere in there. Now I see that George Aniki.
George could not be seen anywhere in the room. A short while ago, when Shannon had come into the room, George had suddenly said that he had forgotten something in the mansion and needed to go back to get it. Shannon said that she would guide him, just like she had on the way to the guest house, and the two of them had departed together. They've been showing signs of it for a long time, you know. Asking what the other person liked, ask what their hobbies were. I always knew it was too much to be of passing interest.
Come to think of it, I get the feeling that George Aniki has always been overly nice to Shannon. Now I get it.
I found it! There's a rose right there! No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
According to the weather report, it looks like it'll be at its worst tonight. It also seems that it won't stop until it won't. It also seems that it won't stop at all. Words.
Yep.
It also seems that it won't stop all tomorrow.
It won't stop. It will stop all tomorrow.
Okay.
Yep.
It also seems that it won't stop all tomorrow, but it should get a little better.
Really? Then the boat may not arrive until the day after tomorrow. I'm concerned that it might interfere with your work on Monday.
I already knew that the typhoon would be coming beforehand. Just in case, I made sure that I didn't have any plans for Monday, so it's alright. I may not look like it, but I really am the type who can plan ahead in this schedule.
George puffed out his chest, acting proud. Compared to the normally composed appearance that George always had as the oldest cousin, he now looked amusingly like a little kid. Shannon chuckled at this gap. It's no surprise that someone who will soon make his company prosperous is so well prepared.
Well, making a company prosperous really is a tough job. Money isn't the only thing that's important. I learned that well by studying from my father. Making a company prosperous is like having a castle and leading your subordinates. My father, true to his name of Hideyoshi, really loves reading about the great leaders of the Sengoku period. Most of his philosophical speeches on business management start with one of them. Did you know? Takeda Shingen, who was feared as the leader of the strongest cavalry corps in the Sengoku period, started out with his troops in a complete disarray, and didn't have the kind of strong leadership necessary to utilize them well.
Is that true? That's a little unexpected.
In order to unite his troops, Shingen utilized several strategies. For example, when a soldier succeeded well in battle, he would immediately honor them with a medal. Normally, that kind of thing was put off until after the war, and they were all awarded at once. By doing that regularly on the field of battle, he immediately showed his appreciation for his troops' military exploits, which motivated them in an extremely significant fashion. Furthermore, whenever one of his troops was brought down by an illness, he was the first to rush up to them and care for them, things like that. Takeda Shingen wasn't just the man who led the strongest cavalry corps in the Sengoku period. He was the person who cared the most for his troops throughout the Sengoku period.
That must be why all of his troops followed him. The truth was, Shannon had already heard this story several years ago. But when George started to tie his father in one of these stories, he would always be beaming, looking like he was having a great time. Though Shannon did not interrupt, but merely smiled and encouraged him to continue.
Of course, in a capitalist world, money is power, and it is also the height of your castle wall. But you can't build up a castle or succeed in war by yourself. That kind of thing can only be created with the support of many subordinates, by borrowing their strength. After understanding this, when I look at my father's back, I realize how immature I am. I can't see much my father has cultivated his character by working hard. Or and understand well how he was able to build up all that he is until today.
George-sama, you truly look up to your father. I'm jealous.
Sorry. That's not exactly the way I meant to say it.
I'm sorry, I also didn't mean it that way. The two of them awkwardly looked at their feet. Shannon had no parents. She had been brought up in a welfare institute owned by Kinzo called the Gospel House. Under the guidance of the honorary director, Kinzo, the Gospel House offered excellent students a chance to live a life of service. If they were accepted, they would be able to leave the institute and work as servants for the Ushidamiya family. This was considered the highest honor for a student. Servants from the Gospel, Bukuin House, all took in the names with the character in, on, or non in them while they served. So Shannon wasn't her real name. Same goes for Canon. All of the students at the Gospel House were orphans. Or, failing that, people who had been disowned by their parents through some special circumstance. Because of this, the students had been taught to think of each other as their own family. That's why it seemed natural to Canon to call Shannon his sister. And while only Shannon and Canon were working today in the mansion, there were other servants who worked in the shift rotation named Manon and Lennon, who also inherited the non character in their names. However, there were not many servants who stayed with the Ushidamiya family for long. It was standard for them to quit after 3 years. So you could possibly say that Shannon, who had been working there for over 10 years, was a very rare exception to the rule. Working as a servant for the Ushidamiya family was a heavy burden to bear, but the pay wasn't bad at all. Working for a full 3 years would earn more than what is needed to enter mainstream society. That was why, even though the students realized what a harsh task working for the Ushidamiya family was, they still hoped to be accepted. But in Shannon's case, maybe the fact that she had managed to continue for more than 10 years should not be viewed as her having more willpower than any of the other servants. Maybe it was a lack of courage to say she wanted to quit that forced her to continue working for those 10 years. The Kinzo, who would not even trust his own blood relatives, those excellent servants sent from the Gospel House were the only ones he could trust. Because of that, Kinzos would sometimes allow them to wear the family crest as servants under his direct control, and have them work close to him.
You've already been working here about 10 years, right? You must have saved up a lot of money by now, right?
I don't know, really. It's not like there's anything in particular I like to buy. And just because you have a few million yen doesn't mean you have enough to live the rest of your life with.
I don't know.
If she has like a fucking few million yen, I mean, that's a pretty damn good, like, nest egg right there.
In 1986, no less?
Right?
So you haven't been working here trying to reach a target sum?
No, I haven't. I have nowhere to go outside of this mansion.
Bitch, you could go anywhere.
I have been getting along well with Milady and the other young servants, too. I am sometimes scolded by Madam, but caring for the rose garden and cleaning the mansion is fun.
But that isn't your life, Sayo.
Yep, Sayo-chan. Shannon cast her eyes downward when she heard her real name. She understood what George was trying to say and closed her mouth.
Even after becoming an adult and a full-fledged member of society, I've been studying and I've learned something. A human's life is not as monotonous or as short as we thought when we were kids.
That horrifying thought that everyone has in their student years. Will the rest of my life be like a monotonous, boring, sleep-inducing after-school class, where I endlessly, lazily while away the time until finally it ends, without anything interesting ever happening? However, these thoughts only arise while a person is still an underage student. Compared to a human's life, the time they spend as a student is nothing more than a blink of an eye, just the period before they break out of their shells and cast off their immaturity. The inside of the shell might be a hot, suffocating, and boring world, but the world beyond that shell is vast and full of limitless possibilities.
So far, your life has been spent only within a shell called Shannon. Aren't you making the mistake of thinking that your life will always continue like this?
That is... Shannon couldn't deny those words. She hadn't been able to find any concrete issues with her way of life. And since she had never had any desire or goal to change her life in any particular way, she had continued her life idly. And if she were asked whether her life was already fulfilled, she wouldn't necessarily have been able to nod. That may have been a truth she was deliberately averting her eyes from. As long as George did not realize that truth, she would have continued pretending not to notice, as her real life slipped away, neglected, bit by bit. George-sama, is it wrong for me to continue living this way?
It's wrong. And by the way, didn't you break one of the rules just now?
George immediately gave a strict answer, then broke out into a mischievous smile. Shannon already knew what she was being chided for, and it seemed it was embarrassed her as she hung her head.
Didn't you promise not to use Sama when the two of us are alone?
I can't obey this as a promise. But if it was an order, I would have to obey it. Because I'm furniture.
Then it's an order.
Yes, certainly. George-san. As Shannon hung her head, her face red, she said George's name again, this time using son.
Yes, that's better, Sayo-chan.
A smile rose to George's face, praising Sayo's small act of bravery. The way they talked with each other gave off the sense that the relationship had already been ongoing for some time. For a long while, as if the weather raging around them didn't even enter their consciousness. The two of them talked about the many memories they'd built during their relationship that no one else knew about. Every once in a while, a flash of lightning would attempt to dampen the mood, but it could not sully those moments, which seemed to flush even the roses outside the deepest shade of red.
Oh yeah. I have something I wanted to tell you.
What could it be? George, who had been speaking eloquently, suddenly started to stutter. From his manner, Shannon too understood something. George timidly searched through his pocket for it. It got caught deep in his pocket somehow, and came out somewhat slowly and awkwardly, in the same manner as his speech.
It's a dick in a box.
It's a dick in a box! It was a box! It was a very small box. A small box covered in a deep blue velvet. Its characteristic shape was enough to make anyone realize what was resting inside. Shannon had been preparing her heart a little, sure of what it must be. But even so, when she actually saw it, she couldn't avoid blushing once more. George opened the small box, took it out, and held it out for Shannon to take.
I want you to accept it.
I can't accept something so valuable.
You can't accept it?
That's not what I meant. I meant something like that is too good for me.
Io, this is not a request. It's an order, okay? Accept this ring, okay?
I can't. Hope disobey an order.
Yes, right. Good.
Shannon, not wanting to show her bright red face, timidly accepted the ring from George's hand while staring at the ground. The ring wasn't a simple accessory. It was a noble object, since ancient times was meant to be offered to a special woman with a special meaning. So while George could order her to take it, he could not order anything beyond that. Anything beyond what would depend not on an order, but on Shannon's Sayo's own will.
So, from here on, it's no longer an order. Io, I want you to answer me tomorrow without using words. Do you understand?
How?
I won't order you anymore, so this isn't an order. But a ring is something you put on your finger. If you like it, you could just put it on any finger that you choose.
Shannon had only pretended not to know. He already understood what he wanted her to do. But she was standing at a huge crossroads of her life.
Look how late it's gotten. Let's call it a night.
George faced away from Shannon, seemingly slightly uncomfortable.
It might be possible for me to order you to put it onto a finger of your left hand. You too might be timid and dependent enough to actually obey that kind of an order. But I want you to do this very last part of your own will, Kyle. You understand, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So, that's my order. I want you to think about it well tonight and show me your answer tomorrow.
Shannon nodded back. Today was the culmination of their long relationship. This moment had not come as any surprise to Shannon.
We should be getting back to the guest house soon. If we take any longer, we'll make everyone worried about us.
I'm sorry, I just remembered something I had to do in the mansion, so, I'll go back to the mansion.
Something this late? Really?
George stared into Shannon's face as he laughed mischievously. He had seen through the obvious lie of Shannon's. But imagining how she felt, it wasn't as if he couldn't understand her embarrassment and why she might ask to be alone. And so George, having understood Shannon's lie and all that was behind it, allowed her to leave. Damn, I keep breaking my fucking screen. I keep breaking my damn screen. Vicky, what? I know, I broke the screen. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I broke the screen again. Shannon entered the entrance hall to the mansion with a tottering gait. Her chest was almost bursting to a point of mixture of exaltation and uncertainty that she couldn't easily describe. After stopping for a second in front of the servant room to take a breath and calm her heart, she opened the door. Inside, Goda, who had been ordered to take the midnight shift at the mansion tonight, was absorbed in an old, worn-out crossword puzzle magazine. He looked up for an instant to see whether the family had come, but when he realized it was a fellow servant, he returned to his puzzles as if nothing had happened. I was told by Genji-san to help you.
Oh, really? That would be useful. I was just about to go make the rounds to close to the mansion, but I was in two minds whether I should leave this place empty. After all, the meeting Kraus-sama and the others are conducting appears as though it will continue for quite some time. They might order tea at any time.
That's true. Then what shall we do? Should I remain here while...
In that case, Shannon-san. Sorry, but would you please make the rounds around the mansion? I will stay here, waiting the family's order.
Yes. Shannon felt a twinge of annoyance. Despite the fact that she had come here to help out as a favor, she was being forced to do the job of a person actually on duty, as though it were natural. Furthermore, after one-sidedly forcing that task on her, Goda had once again gone back to his magazine and had become immersed in his crossword puzzle. We just need to roll that up and bring it up. Yeah. For the time being, as a sign of respect for her elder, Shannon bowed her head and she left the room to make the rounds. Getting a little angry, that enabled her to bring the airy sensation she had been feeling until now under control a bit. Besides, she couldn't show this kind of face to Genji or Kanon. Until her heart was able to calm down, she wanted a little time to herself, and maybe going around the mansion wasn't such a bad way to do it. From the dining hall, she began to hear the tumultuous voices of the family's discussion. Someone could speak at a great length, but then be opposed by someone else. That rebuttal would continue in a very long, drawn-out fashion, until opposed by yet another person. That kept on repeating. It was as though their displeasure was seeping out through their voices. She had been told to go to the guest house, so it would be bad if she was discovered by Kraus. Thinking that, Shannon quick-footedly slipped by the entrance to the dining hall. There, then inside the mansion, controlled by the darkness, she began to check that the house was all closed up, following a prearranged route. She walked down the hall, checking that each window was closed. On Rokkanjima, there were no humans other than the family, so in actuality, closing up wasn't that terribly meaningful of a task. Until Natsuhi had scolded them that this attitude was careless, closing up had not been customary in the Ushinomiya family. The metal fixtures on the completely chilled windows were freezing, and every time she went to check on them, one by one, it felt like a glow in her heart seemed to cool down.
What?
Just then, she thought she saw something flickering across the hall. Flickering? Something like that shouldn't be visible beyond the darkness of the hall. Although she thought it was probably her eyes playing tricks on her, She killed her breathing for a brief moment. Then, grasping a curtain, she fearfully gazed into the center of the hall. However, other than the occasional crack of thunder brightening the hallway, she was unable to glimpse any flicker again. It must have been her imagination, after all. Maybe because she couldn't calm her heart. She saw something that didn't even exist. Shannon resumed checking the windows. However, in the back of her mind, a certain unnerving possibility had resurrected. It was that which had been passed down amongst the servants who served the Ushidamiya main family. That ghost story, in which the mansion had a different masters of the day and night. In which the master of the night, Beatrice, would sometimes fly around the mansion in the form of sparkling butterflies. Come to think of it, hadn't Canon-kun said that he once seen it for himself? He got sulky when I didn't believe him, and told him he was just seeing things. Could it possibly? Really? The roar of thunder gave no answer.
I don't hear no thunder.
You mean that?
That's rain.
That's a whole lot of wet. That's a whole lot of wet.
It was midnight. You're gonna pop out of the painting like Mario? Answer the question. Yeah, exactly. There's way too many establishing shots.
Just counting how many people are still there. Awake, anxious about what's going to happen in the morning.
Fuck, I was supposed to count?
You didn't have to. There's 18 guaranteed people. Or is it 9?